Every autumn, we torch piles of branches that could feed the earth for decades, destroying free water and fertilizer in a single afternoon. Yet in the Alps, one rebel farmer buried wood instead of burning it and grew lemons in the snow. This mounded soil became a 20-year powerhouse. No hoses, no fertilizer, no struggle. So why did we abandon the secret that could end drought in your backyard? The answer challenges everything modern agriculture believes. Sepp Holzer never set out to become a rebel. He simply watched the mountains and listened to the soil. In the 1980s in Austria, that quiet defiance turned his farm into a battleground. Inspectors arrived with clipboards and warnings, measuring his steep terraces and the deep ponds he had dug without permission. Each mound of soil, each pile of buried wood drew another fine. Holzer's neighbors followed the rules. Flat fields, straight rows, government-approved crops. He built hills out of rotting logs and planted citrus where only spruce had grown. Officials called it reckless. They worried about floods, erosion, and the chaos of untamed land. They handed him violation notices, sometimes dozens in a single year. By the end of the decade, Holzer was known as the most fined farmer. "I am the most fined farmer," he said with a crooked smile. The fines piled up, thousands of shillings, then euros, each one a demand to return to the old ways. But Holzer kept building. In 1986, authorities accused him of creating illegal water retention mounds. He paid the penalty, then appealed. In 1989, they threatened to seize his farm. His response was simple. He invited them to see his yields. Lemons, kiwis, grapes, root vegetables, flourishing on slopes where nothing but grass had grown before. His farm produced 10 times more food than any neighbor. My yields silenced them. The government could not ignore the evidence. Citrus trees bending under the weight of fruit, vegetables thriving without a drop of irrigation or a bag of chemical fertilizer. Holzer's persistence turned every penalty into proof. He watched the rules burn, but his soil only grew richer. Nature, left to its own wisdom, can outlast any bureaucracy. Lemons dangle in the alpine wind, their skins bright against a backdrop of snow. On the steep terraces of Kremeterhof, kiwi vines climb alongside spruce trees, their fuzzy fruit swelling under cold mountain skies. Grapes ripen on the same slopes where neighbors struggle to coax grass from the soil. No hoses snake through these beds. No sprinklers tick in the night. Water comes from within the earth itself, pulled up through roots that reach deep into mounds of buried wood. The soil here is dark and loose, laced with the sweet scent of decay. Frost settles on the fields in early October, but the ground beneath Holzer's citrus trees stays warm. Even in the dead of winter, green shoots push through the mulch, fed by the slow heat of rotting logs breaking down below. The citrus trees are not stunted or sickly. They stand heavy with fruit, their leaves glossy and strong. Kiwis, usually reserved for subtropical valleys, thrive here beside alpine pines. The harvest baskets fill, with colors that seem impossible at this altitude. Lemons, grapes, even figs. Neighbors come to stare. Inspectors, once armed with fine books, now bring cameras. The evidence is impossible to ignore. Where others see barren slopes, Holzer gathers abundance. This is not a trick of greenhouse glass or hidden irrigation pipes. The secret is buried underfoot. At the heart of every Hugelkultur mound lies a simple, overlooked miracle. Rotting wood is a sponge. Not a metaphorical sponge, but a physical one, built by nature's own architecture. The cell walls of wood, made mostly of lignin, form a labyrinth of tiny pores and tunnels. When wood starts to decay, these pathways open wider. Rainwater and snowmelt seep in, flooding every chamber. In laboratory tests, heavily decomposed pine logs have soaked up water equal to 5 times their dry weight, over 500%. Oak, slower to break down, still doubles or triples its mass with moisture. That is not theory. It is physics. On the surface, a Hugelkultur bed looks like any other raised mound. Soil, mulch, maybe a tangle of squash vines. But if you drive a moisture probe deep into the mound, the numbers tell a different story. In the dry heat of July, when neighboring gardens wilt and hoses run day and night, the probe sinks into the Hugelkultur bed and finds moisture levels that rival a spring rain. Field readings show 40 to 60% soil moisture inside the mound, even as the topsoil above cracks in the sun. The buried logs below, swollen with water, release it slowly to the roots above. It is a hidden reservoir, recharged with every passing storm. The secret to this water-holding power lies in the way wood breaks down. As fungi and microbes eat away at the cell walls, the wood's density drops. A chunk of pine that started dense enough to sink in water becomes light and airy, like a natural sponge. In one study, degraded pine dropped to just 0.18 grams per cubic centimeter, less than half its original weight. Every gram of that decayed wood can trap several grams of water. Even after months without rain, roots find moisture where the eye sees only dust. For gardeners, this means freedom from the daily chore of dragging hoses across the yard. It means a summer without wilted leaves or lost crops. The promise is not wishful thinking. It is backed by the structure of the mound itself. Beneath the surface of every Hugelkultur mound, a quiet engine runs day and night. As soon as the first shovel of soil covers the wood, the mound becomes more than a reservoir. It becomes a heater. Microbes and fungi swarm through the moist, decaying logs, breaking down lignin and cellulose. Their work is not just invisible, it is exothermic. Every bite of wood releases a pulse of heat, warming the soil from the inside out. Even in the biting cold of an alpine winter, the ground above a buried log can register several degrees warmer than the air. This is not just a comfort for roots, it is a survival advantage. Seeds germinate earlier in spring. Frost that would kill young shoots on bare ground passes harmlessly over these mounds, buffered by the slow, steady warmth rising from below. In autumn, the growing season lingers, with tomatoes and squash ripening weeks after neighboring gardens have withered. The heat is only the beginning. As the years roll by, the buried wood transforms from a simple energy source into a trust fund for the soil. The breakdown of logs is a marathon, not a sprint. Hardwoods like oak and maple can take 20 years to fully decompose. During that time, the wood releases nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, at a pace that matches the needs of the plants above. There are no boom and bust cycles, no flush of fertility followed by collapse. Instead, the soil receives a slow, reliable infusion. Each spring, new roots reach deeper, finding fresh pockets of nourishment. Each autumn, the mound settles a bit more, its core richer than the year before. A well-built Hugelkultur bed can feed crops for 20 years or more without added fertilizer. In a world obsessed with instant results, Hugelkultur offers something rare, a promise that with the right foundation, your soil will only grow richer as the years go by. Flat fields became the new standard as machines rolled onto the land. In the decades after 1920, tractors and harvesters demanded a uniform surface. No bumps, no mounds, nothing that could slow a steel wheel or jam a plow. The old practice of building hills from buried wood fell out of favor, not because it failed, but because it didn't fit the logic of mechanization. A tractor can cover a flat acre in minutes, planting row after row without interruption. Efficiency became a numbers game. More ground covered, fewer obstacles, higher yields per hour. Fields were scraped level, brush was burned, and the landscape was reworked to suit the needs of machines, not roots. The promise of speed and scale replaced the slow, patient fertility of buried wood. As the mounds disappeared, so did their hidden reservoirs of water and nutrients. What remained was a blank canvas, easy for machines, but hungry for fertilizer and irrigation. Start with a trench built right on top of the grass. The foundation is always the same. The biggest, oldest, most rotten logs you can find. Oak and maple work best because hardwood breaks down slowly and feeds the soil for years. Never use cedar, walnut, or anything treated. Those woods poison the roots and stall the mound. Stack the logs tightly, filling gaps with smaller branches and twigs. This is not a loose pile. Every air pocket is a future sinkhole. Next, pack every crevice with nitrogen-rich greens. Rotting wood is hungry for nitrogen, so use grass clippings, fresh manure, or even urine if you have it. If you skip this step, microbes will steal nitrogen from your plants. That is the nitrogen trap, with yellow leaves, stunted growth, and disappointment. Once the green layer is thick, cap the mound with a foot of topsoil and mulch. Water it in well during the first year. After that, the mound handles the rest. A retired schoolteacher stands beside her garden, the hose coiled and untouched since the second spring. She built her first mound with storm-felled maple logs, packing every gap with grass clippings and manure. Now, even in August, the soil stays cool and damp. She jokes that her tomatoes get more water from the earth than she does from the tap. Her water bill dropped so sharply that the city sent a notice asking if the meter was broken. A frugal homeowner in the suburbs turned last year's brush pile into a serpentine bed winding through his backyard. By the end of the first year, his harvest was the largest he had ever seen, and the savings paid for his seed order twice over. Not every story starts with success. One permaculture enthusiast watched her seedlings yellow and stall. She had skipped the manure, trusting the wood alone. The lesson was swift. Rotting wood steals nitrogen at first. She dug in fresh clippings and a wheelbarrow of compost, and within weeks, the bed sprang to life. Her mistake became her proof. Each testimonial carries the same refrain: bury the wood and the ground gives back for years. Today, droughts and fertilizer prices are climbing while millions still burn what could become reservoirs beneath their gardens. As climate extremes threaten food security, every buried branch is a quiet act of resilience. The choice is not about nostalgia. It is about building soil that outlives us. The ground remembers what we give it. The archive needs builders, not just viewers. What legacy will your garden leave? Share your thoughts below.